You got me on here? Yeah, you do. Okay.
Yeah, you're right there, man. You're in here. Let me hold on. There you go.
Oh,
you got it?
There it is. Yep.
There you go.
All
Can
right,
hear
I
yourself.
got it.
All right.
And
Welcome
you
back.
again now.
Yep. Here I am. Here I am. There I are. There I go. Whoa. We are still a go. Amazing.
It is Saturday.
Bro means a lot.
Folks, it's 8 o'clock on Saturday morning.
What else you got going on today?
This is it, man.
This is it.
This is
Where's
it.
your girl at? Home?
Work.
Work?
Yeah, she works Saturdays.
Okay. All right. I'm going to wait. I gave him my number. I'm going to let him have 5 more minutes. And then I'll call him.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll call him on Facebook.
And then I'll say, oh, man.
He'll say, hey, man, you got the wrong Jace. I thought you said Jace
like,
from Facebook. No. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I was just fucking with you with the messages. I just thought, what
are you
is
kidding?
idiot?
Space Force? Please.
Yeah, right. Hey, Captain Kirk, have a good day, huh? I still would be all right with that, somewhat. I'd have to deal with the
Well, then we could have a podcast about that whole thing.
Totally. Totally, man. I don't have enough time to say all the things I really want to say in the world.
Yeah. That's okay. If this falls through, I got some. I can fill some time. Just on the way over here, I had some thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, and in that case, I have some notes I'll go fetch, but I've been writing a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And I want to share some stuff. Some stuff is, deep thought, whatever, and some stuff is funny, silly, stupid, me being an ass. That was one of the things I realized this last week is like, man, I really do enjoy being the fucking shit-throwing chimp sometimes. I really do. I think, and I revel in that, the facetious sort of spirit in me that's like, come on, motherfucker.
The troublemaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also like utility in being a warrior, in battling life problems. Because, like, even in working out, right? Like, I'll go in my head and say, you fuck, pick it up. Lift it again, you And it's okay with me. Look, this is how it works, right? Especially with, like, coaches. Like, if you're in the military, that's one thing. You know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Okay, so you signed up for that treatment. Mm-hmm. So that's a committed relationship, right? It wasn't something surprised. It wasn't like, oh my God, they're meaner than I thought. But
it's just like Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah. Yeah, get my socks. I'm gonna you up. Yeah, it's not like that. It's if you are trying to change a behavior of your own and you need help, and you're looking for that jagged approach, that like provocative, gets you out of your comfort zone approach. You can do it for yourself, but someone else can't do it to you without consent.
Yeah.
Without consent, like you can coach yourself that way. You can call yourself names. In most cases you shouldn't. But if you're working out, like if you check out David Goggins, you ever looked at David Goggins stuff?
It's been a while since I've.
All right. Well, he's pretty hardcore, especially with his language. Like he's pretty straightforward. He doesn't fuck around. He doesn't have time for excuses.
Yeah.
He's an ultimate warrior. And
I think I may have heard an interview with him a few years ago.
Yeah. I'm sure he's been around. But the thing I like about him, here we go.
Just a wandering nomad out on the interstate. Eventually all these roads just end up looking the same. And now it's time for another episode of Relative Road.
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome to another episode of Relative Roads. Today we've got a very cool special guest, Jace Williams. He is a newest member of the Space Force, stationed out there at Beale Air Force Base. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited to learn about this new branch of the military. We've only really gotten what we were given in the news. I mean, generally speaking, general populace. So I'm really excited to get in on this, and Mike is too. So without further ado, Mike, why don't you bring on our guest?
All right. So, Jace, I have to tell you the story as to how I came about your promotion. I'm a truck driver, and, the radio's on half the time, but also
This is the part where I nervously forgot to finish the story of how this interview came about, which I will certainly do at the end of this episode.
And, to be honest with you, this podcast I've been doing almost 2 years now, and the whole point of this show is to kind of dig in conversation with people that maybe exist in a different realm in terms of career, family life, just their personal setup. And I think sometimes the way we go about our desires and our goals, they come from philosophies that sound similar to our own, but there's some unique differences that I think play a huge part in understanding the rest of the world. So that's kind of the goal of this podcast, is for us to further our education about people through conversations that are, uninhibited. There's no limits, nothing we can't talk about, although we do respect your boundaries and the things that you aren't able to talk about. But with all that said, man, I appreciate the call, and I'd like to dig in a little bit. So if you could kind of tell us briefly who you are, where you're from, and what kind of a career you're heading into.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I love the idea of the show. Pardon me. It's beautiful. I love the idea of getting to just better understand everyone around us and kind of how we function together as a society, even though we don't necessarily see all the other parts that are functioning behind the scenes or really deep into someone's life. I love it. So as you said, my name is Jace Williams. I am a Specialist 3 in the United States Space Force. Again, like you said, out of Beale Air Force Base.
Sorry, real quick. That just sounds really cool. That's such a cool, title. Anyway, continue, please.
I am based out of the 7th Space Warning Squadron out there at Beale. And if you've ever driven past, you've probably seen a giant block-looking building kind of back on the far side of base on a hill. I work in there, and that is what we call an upgraded early warning radar. Mm-hmm. And it is a phased array, ground-based radar that just looks out over the Pacific, more or less, and kind of lets us know what's flying above us in that region. I'm a Texas native. I was born in Fort Hood, and my dad was in the Army, so I've been a little bit of everywhere. But I claim Kentucky usually because it's where I've lived the longest.
Okay.
And it's just where I know. But yeah, that's just a little bit of me.
You're a military brat.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Likewise. I don't know if you've looked into the show. I have a couple of episodes where I kind of dig in a little bit to my background, but I've traveled quite a bit. I was a military brat, so I'm familiar with how, your childhood went, which was going to be some of my question was, you grew up in the environment, you were raised by the military, and it's what you knew. And in fact, jets are such a normal part of your life, but they're so exotic to people who don't live the military life. So what's interesting is that at some point, I just didn't quite have the military bug inside. And I think maybe for whatever reason, there's a number of circumstances that led me to think this is maybe not for me, when for a longest time I thought it was. But for you, it seems like it kind of carried itself all the way through. What did you know early on that you were going to join the military, and did you know what you wanted to do?
So that's actually, I'm glad you asked, because I love telling people kind of how this came about. I really did. I never thought I would be where I am, because for the longest time I kind of denounced. I wouldn't say denounced. I never really thought the military was going to be for me. Like you said, I grew up around it,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew it and all that. But after my parents split up, I kind of used the military as a scapegoat for all that happening, and was like, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
And so I had set my mind on being a college athlete. I was a swimmer in high school. I played a little bit of tennis, a little bit of baseball, but I primarily swam. And I was going to go to college to swim. But when it came down to it, I had some good offers here and there, but I didn't want to take on student loan. It wasn't too much. I think my best was like 10,000. I was going to have to pull 10,000 a year, to go to a school.
Yeah.
It was like a D2 level. It was an all right school. But in the end, I didn't want student loans. And so I started in the workforce, straight out of high school. And shortly after that, that's when I realized I don't like paying bills.
Okay. Normal. Sound like a normal guy to me. Carry on.
That's when I kind of started to turn my attention towards the military, because I knew what they had to offer. And I knew that I would probably be comfortable in the environment.
Right. Familiar.
I wouldn't say I'm a lapdog, but I always understood the concept of shut up and color.
Yeah. Interesting. It's a safe way to be, I guess. I got you.
Yeah, for sure. And so, let's see. I graduated high school the spring of 2019, and I think around October 2019 is when I started actively talking to my recruiter.
Okay.
And I actually wanted to do, I was trying to do special operations before I kind of came into space. The whole college athlete thing, I knew I wanted to push myself and be physically active. Yeah. And so I kind of started to go down the special operations recruiting path. I was in development for a while. I trained with a lot of those guys. They had a bunch of really cool stuff. I mean, I didn't even get into the meat and potatoes of special operations, but I got to do something called water development, where I would, I'd have my hands, I'd have like my hands bound. I'd have to tread water or like recover a snorkel and a mask from underwater and be able to put it on and get all the water out. Some cool stuff.
Stamping that man card.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I feel you. I get it.
So, but as a swimmer though, I wasn't too attuned to running. And one thing about those guys is that they run a lot and they run fast. And after a while of development, I wasn't really meeting the run time. And I was kind of looking at it like, well, I can keep going, or I can just take a job. And then if I want to try to cross train later, I can.
Sure.
And it's a safer option. And I kind of wanted to just get out of where I was at the time. And so I told my special ops recruiter, I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to have to come back to this at a later date. And then I told my recruiter, my normal recruiter, I was like, I think I'm going to go the normal route. And then I had, they make you construct a list of like 10 or so jobs that you would like.
Yeah.
And space system operations was like my fourth choice, because I was very interested in it, but I didn't know a whole lot. So I threw it on there, but whenever I went back to my normal recruiter, we were talking, and maybe 2 or 3 days later, he texted me and said, "Hey, I got you space." And I said, "Cool, I'll take it." And that kind of led me down the path to where I am now.
It'd be kind of hard to say no to that call, to be honest with you. So what, you had some interest in it, and what interest is that? What is it about the technology or just the field itself? Why are you so interested? Well, interested enough to lump it into a list that could potentially get you there. And how do you feel about how it's going so far?
So I think one of my biggest what kind of lumps space into like my interest in general, and this started at a very young age, is the desire to understand the unknown.
Nice.
There's an intrinsic interest for me in things that are arcane. That's why I also, as a kid, I was also very into like marine biology, because there's so much about the ocean we don't know.
Yeah.
In the same way in space, it was, I'd look up and there's so much I didn't understand or didn't know. Same way, people look into the ocean, we've only discovered, such a small percentage of it. It's just something interesting about knowledge, and about, like I said, understanding what we don't know. And so at a young age, I was looking up at the stars. I was a kid that played outside a lot naturally. And I love being out at night and being able to look up and see constellations. I think I had my first telescope at the age of 7. And I've got one or two more since then. But I've always enjoyed looking up, and the relation between that and kind of how I came into space.
Yeah.
I think, going back to like childhood and college, I wanted to do astrology for the longest time.
Okay.
I didn't really work out. But I think it had to do a lot more with the technical side of it, because I saw space system operations, and like it was a picture of someone in a dark lit room on a console looking at a lot of different information. Really cool to me. To have a job that was more involved and wasn't a desk job where I was flooded in paperwork and, in a cubicle, 9 to 5, yada yada.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me ask you the deeper question right off the bat then, okay? Because you're a stargazer, right? And I'm similar in a way, and I think it's sometimes the liberty of living in a safe environment. Now think about that. You grew up in a protected, guarded environment. And, when people try to address privilege, this is one of those things that gets twisted up in a whole crazy controversial way. But I think at its fundamental basis, like when you're in a safe environment and, in theory, like, I mean, we're still crazy people on the military base, but in theory, like there were patrol cars that would come by so often, and you didn't have to be rich for that to be the case, or, high ranking. And so you were able to ponder about the stars and beyond and what things are really like. I think what is important to me about that is there are some children that don't get that safety. There are some children that don't have the ability to look at the stars long enough before somebody comes crashing down on them, and I think that there's nothing wrong with living a life of privilege like that. In fact, it should be universal. Everybody should be free and safe enough to stare at the stars and wonder what's next and what else is out there, and dream of our own potential,
Absolutely.
And the thing is, though, even though there's nothing wrong with it, I think we still have to speak to the future in terms of what means the most about the past. And that is the safety of people. And I think that's where space relates, is like, look, this planet's quite volatile. And I know that we were made from this planet, but it's trying to kill us. I mean, come on. It's been trying to kill us since we got here, right? And so I think people like Elon Musk, they think of the future in that way, and they say, fuck it, I'll take us there. If anybody else doesn't feel like doing it, I'll take us there. And I think that you have that same innate spirit within you, and like you're sort of the same cut of the same cloth. I would think somewhere inside you think, fuck, I'd really like to hang out with Elon Musk, just to ponder.
I know I would.
Yeah, right?
I got some ideas to try to sell him.
But the question is, to you, is what do you think of beyond? Do you believe in aliens? Do you believe in God? Let me go there. And you can be as general or specific as you want, but or not even answer if you like. But I'm just curious, what does Jace Williams, a member of the Space Force, really think is beyond?
Totally. I will caveat, I am a member of the Space Force, but let it be known that I do not speak on behalf of.
Yes, that's standard disclaimer.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm not just a truck driver.
So I mean, there's a lot of different people, and I wouldn't expect everyone to share my same views within the force. But I've actually been having a lot of conversation about these kinds of topics recently.
Excellent.
When it comes to, I've been a little back and forth my whole life when it comes to religion. I chose to be baptized one year after I went to a church camp, and I kind of found religion in my own right. And then I kind of had a falling out because I saw things happen in a way that I didn't like and I didn't associate with, and I kind of separated myself from that scene. But more recently, I've been coming back into it. I think there is a higher power. Who am I to say who it is, who's right and who's wrong? When it comes to the way I live my life, I kind of think everything is already going to happen. Everything's already been plotted out, and we're just kind of along for the ride. One of my biggest beliefs is that, like you were saying, we're all from this earth. We're all made the same. We all breathe the same air. We all need to eat and drink, and I don't see reason for us to put anyone else down and bring anyone else up. We're all kind of on the same playing field here.
Yes, culture's a bit of a facade, but it's necessary for language.
Completely.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of the way I live my life. We've all heard the golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest thing is, if you're happy, do you. I think it's terrible the way people put other people down, but life's always going to be like that, and hopefully one day we could all hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but there's just always going to be people that don't have that kind of outlook on life, whether it be discrimination or hatred, whether that come from fear or just how they're raised. There's a bunch of different variables, but what I'm saying is I do believe in a higher power. I don't really associate or assign it any given identity.
I understand. And it's tricky because I too have a very similar philosophy, and I know it's tricky to explain how I connect to my belief system and how I go about it. But,
right.
Here's the thing, people can tell when anger is displaced. People can tell if they're paying attention, and if they don't have displaced anger themselves, then they can really see what's going on. And a lot of times people are just deeply angry about something they don't understand. And in a world that says you need to be educated, and yet you don't have or think you don't have the resources, it's easy to live in a loop of destruction. And the truth is, man, we live in this quote unquote cancel culture. It's just angry people, trying to take control. But I think that I'm not after fame. I'm not going to lie and say I'm not after fortune. I'd like to be rich enough to tell people it's not worth it. It's just money, right? I'd like to have that experience. But, the truth is, people, I encourage people to be honest, even if you're fucking angry, and I don't think your opinion represents anybody else's but yours, but that's just because you and I think alike in that way. So we're safe. But I think the exploration of space is just an extension of what we really are. We are the question. How did we get here? What is beyond us? What are we really? And I think when you live in that mindset, and now your career is directed in that way, you are a unique person in the bunch because you're always open. You're always open, and that's a healing power. you know, and I really believe in community in that way. My goal for this message of the show is for people to consume world peace in such a way that they are, you know, and it's not to the point where like we're haunting each other for every mistake, but that we watch ourselves that way, that we watch every move, every thought, every inclination we have, just to at least observe what it is we do as the human animal, you know. And I think the greatest liberty of being human is that you know, I'm a monkey that knows it likes to throw its own shit sometimes, and I really enjoy that. So I encourage you, Jace, every step of the way, even if people tell you not to be open, just, you know, be the soldier that you really are and you always have been. You're amazing, man. You really are. I admire the mind that is going into the field that's designed to protect me and the planet I fucking love, you know. Reggie, you have a question?
I just had something to add about the whole anger thing that you brought up at the beginning of that little rant. And that is, you know, I think what's going on here is people generally, and I've experienced this before, so I'm speaking from my personal experience. When you encounter something you don't understand, that you're ignorant about, the initial response, I think, is to be angry at that thing for being there. Like, oh, here's this thing that I'll have to understand to deal with. I don't want to have to learn about this whole thing. Like, to bring up a thing that's happened over the last 10 years, it's like people getting into, hey, wait, no, I'm transgender, or I'm this, or I'm that. These are I use different pronouns than what you think you would use for me. And there's oh God, there's this whole other thing I have to deal with now, this whole other cultural thing I have to learn. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to learn. I don't want to have to grow in that way. And it turns into anger, but like, why not be angry at yourself for the ignorance? And that's what I do for myself, is like, don't be angry at the thing. Be angry at yourself for being ignorant, and be angry at yourself for being lazy, not wanting to just do the bare minimum and trying to understand this thing. Because if you understand it and then still don't like it, well, that's your opinion, and something we can talk about. But if you don't understand it and you get angry because you don't want to understand it, that doesn't really serve any positives.
Well, I think the biggest plus for his situation, sorry to speak for you, Jace, but you know, you're surrounded by support, a team of people who are designed hierarchically. I don't know how to say that properly, but designed in such a way that you have backup behind backup behind backup.
And that's an amazing thing about the military, is the structure and the ability to use that structure to accomplish huge tasks.
Yeah. Do you have to live on the base?
I do, yes.
Okay. Are you okay with that? Would you rather live off the base? Yeah.
I mean, I think there's positives about living off base and just being in your own little world.
Yeah.
Having a house, but I also think of it kind of like the college experience I never got to have. You know, I get to live in dorms with a bunch of my
totally.
colleagues.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's all right.
You rotten little adolescents. Go to bed. Good for you, man. I'm so thrilled to death for you. I really am. I hope that we can meet one day and have another chat in person, possibly another podcast. What is your goal in your career? You plan on doing the long haul? You gonna try and get in a plane and then to the moon? You gonna ride passenger with Elon? Like, what's the deal?
SpaceX. So I'm glad you asked that too, because God, you kind of picking my brain here, like, in a good way.
We could go for a long time, but I won't keep you forever.
I mean, you were talking about aliens earlier before religion.
We can get.
I do think I'll segue back into the future of my career. I do think there's other life out there, and Elon is absolutely someone I look up to and someone I admire, because although I don't know where my military career will take me, I do know that one constant I kind of want to focus on is getting a degree that will, while I'm in using my tuition assistance, getting a degree that will help me in the sustainability field. In college, I wanted to get a degree in it was like sustainability and like something applications like renewable energy type stuff. I love, like you said, I love this earth. I love the people on it, and I want to see humanity thrive.
Yeah.
And so what Elon's doing is like a huge inspiration for me. I want to get into renewable resources like algae, to make biofuel for, commercial spaceships that'll take us to Mars and beyond or wherever. Because honestly, although it's very science fiction and it seems so far away, 10 years ago, we had no idea we were going to be where we are technologically. And so there's like an exponential rate of improvement, in technology nowadays. And who am I to say where it's going to be in the next 5 or 10 years? I would hope that it would be where Elon sees it, because that's a huge step forward for us. And whether I do the long haul, I might commission. I'm going to enjoy my job. I know that's for sure.
Yeah, no
but
doubt.
In the end, I want to see humanity go far.
Amazing. It's good to hear someone young like yourself thriving in a career field that he's in love with, and the possibilities, the potential that you can literally feel. I would imagine you experience goosebumps quite often. Like, is this really happening?
Very.
Yeah. Question about Elon. Now, this is sort of like a buddy to buddy. What do you think kind of thing? What is it about him? Like, what? Because he's so peculiar, and he's always him. Like, yeah. What do you? I think he's fucking ADHD prime. Like, he can like cut it off like a fucking machine. Like, all right, go to work. What do you think?
Yeah. Man, I love the way he does things. He put a car in space just because he said he was going to do it, and then he went and fucking did it.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, he doesn't let anyone get in his way. Like, he's got an idea, he's got a goal, and he's doing these things. Like, he made rocket boosters come back and be reusable. I know for not everyone is going to like understand how much. I mean, that is billions of dollars saved every single time we launch something.
Yeah.
And I got to while I was out down in Vandenberg, in California, in Southern California, I got to see one of those launches, and I got to see a booster come back down out of the atmosphere, break the sonic barrier, and land back down again. And I mean, that was just one of many times I got chills. I mean, seeing something like that happen. Oh.
Yeah. Wow.
He's crazy.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, like, he's got ideas. He doesn't let anything get in his way, and he just keeps going, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's like Kanye for like the tech world.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's like.
Right? Because Kanye's crazy, ridiculous like that too, but he's a fucking mountain mover. Like, that's the thing. These eccentric people, there's a lot of controversy, but it all is the same thing we were talking about, anger. People just put their own shit in it. But the truth is, like, they just fucking live who they are. That's the bottom line, right? They have never swayed from this identity. They're just like, I'm fucking me, bitch. And that's it. You can't go to space without all. Yes, I can. You know what I mean? Like, that's what he represents to me, is like the soul of humanity is what we are. Because like, we admire that Snoop Dogg character, that Ice Cube character who can come in and slap reality in the face and say, no, bitch, we're doing it this way. And it's dangerous and it's ugly, but it's fucking cool. It's like smoking a cigarette. It just has this raw, like, chaotic sort of appeal. And I think that's what Elon is. He's like that, but a sharp knife.
Well, and in a way, he's kind of getting through a social morality loophole. Like Elon Musk can put a car in space, and everyone's like, "Oh, Elon, you're so eccentric. You put a car in space." But if Space Force said, "Hey, we're going to put a car in space," the people are like, "That's a huge waste of taxpayer money. Why would you do that? That's horrible." So it's like, but hey, it's Elon. He's an eccentric billionaire. He can do what he wants. Now, those are some of us who's like, well, he could have, spent a little bit more money on the guidance system for the rockets and been that much closer. But
I overlooked that stuff.
The car gets him press. Yeah. The car gets him noticed. The car gets him on everyone's radar.
Well, also because it improves the fucking planet.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing about Tesla. And the other thing that I love about him is he's the only fucking car maker that was able to get a concept-looking car in production. Why the hell did it take so long? Fucking Disney World and Universal Studios kept throwing it in our face.
Elon doesn't have a board of directors that he has to answer to.
So anyways, Jay, he's a rock star. I'm with you. Like, I'm a groupie all the same. And I need to be your friend if you're going to be his friend. Just remember that.
Yeah. I have one more Space Force related question that you might be able to answer, or maybe you pontificate on, whatever. All the space junk that we have, in orbit, all the little satellite junk that we have in orbit around the planet. I hear that's going to be a real kind of speed bump to getting out into space and having commercial flights back and forth to the moon and Mars. Is Space Force in the process of figuring out a way to clear all that out? Or do you know that, or have you thought about that at all?
I know peer-to-peer, that is something we space people talk about all the time, because that is not even $1 billion question. That is an infinite amount of money. Dollar question.
Mm-hmm.
It's at a generic physics standpoint, all these little bits and pieces flying around so fast, falling technically so fast, they're going to punch through anything you try and throw at it.
Exactly.
And now I love Elon, but Starlink going up is just making more traffic in that low Earth orbit, and it's gonna make getting out harder for sure. I have no idea if I'm sure we have brains that are trying to think of that, either in the Space Force or just on the civilian side.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Someone's got to be thinking about that kind of stuff, because I know there are some nights where, I stay up and I just think about that, like, how in the world are we going to tackle this? It's hard.
I dedicate brain power to it as well for no reason other than it's fascinating to me.
It's the stress. It'll put pressure on the public. If Reggie's in a bad mood, somebody will do something about it.
Yeah, sure.
All right, Jace. I want to keep it short for you because I just want to honor your time, man. I know you've got a lot to do, and plus it's Saturday. I don't know if you got the day off, or what are your plans for today? What were you going to do besides talk to our punk asses out in Sacramento?
I was going to talk to you guys, really.
Okay.
That's all I had planned. I had my class that I had back in undergraduate space training. There's a lot of them that are out here in Colorado, and so we were going to meet up tonight for dinner. But other than that, that's about it. Maybe do some laundry.
Wait, so you don't know when you're coming back to this area, or is that kind of up in the air?
No, I am. I'll be done here in Colorado on the 19th of March.
Okay.
And then I'll be back out there on the 20th, because I'm just doing a little bit of training out here.
Got it. And one last thing. When someone asks you about Space Force and what they do, because I don't think we made that very clear, but I'd like you to do it. What is it that Space Force does?
So it's there's more publications coming out, daily that people can read up on. But I always think back to an article that I read maybe in December of last year that was like does Space Force look up or do they look down? And the answer is both. I shared a video not too long ago. The command that I fall under, Delta 4, we run missile warning, and I look up. But we also have partners that use satellites, and they look down, and they look at things happening on Earth. And then there are guys like me who look up, and we see what's going on kind of closer to Earth and around us. We've got a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. We have assets in space, and we're here to protect them. We're here to protect sovereignty of space, and we're here to make sure that no one uses space for the wrong reasons. It's become the reason Space Force is even a thing is because in the last couple of years, it's become what's known as a CDO, or a contested, degraded, and operationally limited environment. There's more things up in space. There's more blockades, and then there's treaties, and there are rules of engagement that we have in space that are a lot different on Earth. And we're kind of here to make sure that what the United States has in space and the capabilities that we have, our GPS systems and all of our satellite communications, like Verizon and TNT and your DirecTV, we're here to make sure all that keeps going. We're here to make sure that the life you know and the life you live with all of the wonderful and beautiful advances of technology, a lot of that goes through space, and we're just here to make sure that the world keeps turning.
Amazing. So amazing. Thanks again, man. I hope I don't freak you out when I try to reach out again and say, I want to be a friend. Let's talk. But I don't connect too often to the younger crowd in terms of philosophical conversation. And it interests me because I have this misperception, like many adults, that the kids don't really think about much but video games. And I think that's just the naivete that comes with age. We just start thinking that the next generation doesn't know shit, which isn't true.
Right.
It's just we've got to find the personality that matches, and then we can talk. Yeah. Obviously, that's happened here. So I deeply, deeply appreciate this, man, and I wish you all the best. And Reggie, you want to give some love? You want to say anything?
Yeah, Jace, real pleasure to meet you. Unbelievably, I could go on and on about why that is, but just suffice it to say, you've given me so much confidence in the military and Space Force in general that I'm even more excited to see how that new branch develops.
Touche.
And with people like you there, I think we're in pretty good hands.
Yeah, amazing.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, gentlemen, and I would absolutely love to follow up, Mike, because like you said, I like having those philosophical and those deep conversations with people, and to find someone that is kind of on that same level as I am, I'm down to do this again.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. We'll make that happen. All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, and say hello to the Colonel for me.
Will do.
All right. See you later.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
You too.
See ya.
Well, everyone I ever meet goes here in this book. And now I met you, and you're going in the book.
I'm just a wandering nomad out on the interstate. Eventually all these roads just end up looking the same. I'm just a wandering nomad out on the interstate. Eventually all these roads just end up looking the same.
Well, folks, like I said, I'd come back and explain how did I manifest this interview with Jace from space. Well, that day when I came upon that news report, it was good news. Something that news isn't celebrated for. And it captured my heart. And in such a way that I thought, I'm going to reach out and ask the future for a conversation. And lo and behold, this is what you just witnessed on Relative Roads.